everyone. Happy to introduce Guy Gardner. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and your books to get us started?
Yeah, I do. So I'm Guy Gardner. Do a bit of product placement early on, author of The Mirror Game. A bit about me. I started writing a long time ago, around 2007, and had sort of various. I kind of wrote a couple of books. They weren't really very good. Well, they were pretty awful actually. So I started off, and then I sort of gave up for a long time. And started another book sort of during lockdown, which I guess a lot of people did. And I sort of went from there, and I actually managed to sort of finish this one and kind of go over it and do things that one should do and edit it, to make it a bit better. And that was the first time I'd really sort of properly done the process. And I ended up with The Mirror Game, which got published. And that was sort of my first book, and I was really sort of happy with it. It took a long time, and it kind of it was deleted in the process. I sort of had to start the whole thing again. I finished one version of it, and I thought, I sort of finished it. I was like, wait, I finished the book. That's cool. And then I didn't like it, so I had to start again. And I did. I deleted everything but the characters, and I started again with them. Tried to sort of think what I really liked about it, and what I really liked was the characters, and I sort of went I went back to it sort of from there, and I sort of finished it. When I'm not doing that, I was a full-time musician. I do more teaching now, so I was doing a lot of gigs and traveling all around, and that's kind of when I sort of think about writing, when I sort of get ideas. And I still do a lot of driving now for my work, and I find that's a really good time, so I'll do a lot of driving around to make notes and gradually try and put things together. And that's me, yeah, in a nutshell.
Cool. So the Mirror Game set in 1920s London.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the 1920s drew you into?
What I really liked about it was there was no technology, and the technology that there was could be obviously sort of a bit flaky. So the first thing I liked about it was, if you said I'm going to be somewhere Monday morning, well, you had to be there. It's pretty much what had to happen. If you needed to travel somewhere, you had to travel. There was just this real sort of sense of adventure about that time that I sort of love. And coupled with the fact that it was quite a dark time, it was obviously after the war. People hadn't known up to the point there was a First World War that they thought there would be one, but they didn't realise how bad it was. They thought it was going to be a few months and it would all be fine. Obviously, it wasn't. Like the sort of worst war ever. And it just sort of really interested me, the world changed after that, and they didn't know what was going to happen. Everything was sort of really unsettled. So it was sort of quite a dark time as well. And I think that sort of that definitely comes out in the story, I think, it's a bit sort of unsettled. I just really sort of liked writing in that time. It just really sort of fascinated me. And I like the characters and the clothes and the music, because I'm a jazz musician, so I like music from that time as well. It sort of ticked all my boxes, really, somewhere to sort of write about.
Is that what so obviously your love of jazz and things made you aware of the time. Did you have to do a lot of research for the book?
I did. Most of it, because it was sort of little details. So I found out, I did a lot of reading, and then but what I found, I don't know if it's just the way I work, but if you do too much research, you can sort of lose the story a bit. So I sort of almost have to keep them separate. So I did a lot of reading about that time, and then I tried to pull out, rather than sort of build everything up from scratch, a couple of details that would hopefully sort of bring the world alive. So one of them, the main character, Harry, he has a lighter that he made from a 303 shell from the trenches, and that was like a really common thing that veterans did. They made a lighter from a sort of, one of these sort of gun shells. So I tried to have little sort of telling details like that, and the sort of sound, what cars would have sounded like at the time. And I sort of dropped them in. And sort of worked with that. Um, and it sort of seemed to come together. Obviously, you need to know certain things, the character, who was prime minister, all that sort of thing, and then yeah, and sort of reading about the sort of political times, and there's this real uncertainty about whether there'd be another war, and obviously we know now that there was, and I got quite interested in that feeling of sort of uncertainty that there was. It was a really real thing. So I sort of focused, my story around that.
I'm also intrigued about your music background because I've seen you performing. I've seen you've done things like perform at the Deep in Hull.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, that was that was cool. That was last year. I've done a series of improvised sort of concerts with this electronic artist, and the idea being that we go to the sort of kind of craziest sort of locations we can find, really. And improvise there, so nothing's sort of planned. We just go there and we sort of try and make music, but there's a lot of technology behind it, and sort of being able to sort of broadcast it. But the Deep, so we've done a lot of outdoor ones, and the Deep was one of the first sort of indoor ones. It was so cool. It was such a good place to visit. I loved every minute of it, actually. And yeah, we played in front of the sharks. Yeah, it was good.
It's a really cool place to go, isn't it?
Yeah, they're lovely people as well, because we were in there for setting it up, took a long time, and we were in there for a good 24 hours before, sort of all night, when everyone had gone home, and they were so nice with the food, and yeah, it was a really fun experience, actually. Yeah, hopefully we'll do one again there soon.
Would you sort of incorporate more of that love of music into your stories?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think I write sort of, how can I put it? I write the same as I play music. So because I play jazz, that's improvised, but improvisation doesn't mean making stuff up on the spot. It's using a language to tell a story, right? So you sort of see the similarity. And I found when I started writing that I thought, well, I'm doing the same thing. I'm playing jazz, but I'm just putting words on paper rather than sort of notes into the air. And I really like that. And I think everything I've written at some point, music comes into it. Music comes into the mirror game. Harry's a jazz fan, and the girl he falls for plays violin. And I always like I have to put stuff like that in, otherwise I'm not happy.
We've got some hellos. So Sam has said hello. So has Donna and Trevor Belshaw.
Yeah. Hello.
Donna said that this is the friend, apparently.
The friend?
I don't know. This is the capital letters friend. I don't know what that means. And Sam has said, you sound like a busy man. How do you balance work, family, and life?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think you just have to just try and do it. I don't have any plan. I basically try and write whenever I can, which is normally quite small. So I rarely sort of get a long time to write, but I'm fairly lucky in as much as I can sit down and write sort of anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a sort of special room, or I'm good like that. I can write in the car, or it doesn't bother me. So I try and fit it in around all of that, and around the kids and work, and I think with writing, like a lot of it, you're doing it in your head anyway. It's like, yeah, you type it out at some point, but I think a lot of the story is sort of bubbling away in there. So when I'm driving, in a sense, I am sort of writing, thinking about stories and things that come together. And then I sort of try and put that down on paper at some point. So it does sort of work out, but it's pretty crazy. And it's but yeah, I think you sort of have to you have to try and make it work somehow. And if you want to do it, you find a way.
Is your book available on Kindle and audio?
It will be available from the 10th when when it's re-released. I haven't done Audible yet, but I'd quite like to. It sounds really cool having someone read it, so I'd definitely like to do that. But it will be available on Kindle and obviously as a paperback as well. But yeah, I would like to do that. That would be awesome. I'd like to have it available like that. So watch this space, I suppose.
So what are you writing at the moment?
What I write at the moment? Well, I changed tack a bit. I write different. Most of the things I write seem to be historical, in as much as they're just set in earlier times, which is never really what I don't know. I never intended to do it, but it just seems to be the way that it comes out. So at the moment, I'm writing a slightly darker one, which is set in 1970. I know I said it because I don't know that much about it. I'm only about 50 pages in, but it's set in like 1970s Ireland, and it's about this sort of series of killings that are sort of pretty unexplained. And it's also around the time of the Troubles, so it becomes: is this a killer using that to his advantage, or is it something else? And this priest, who's the sort of main sort of hero, kind of gets involved in it and is trying to solve it. And I'm really enjoying it. It's dark. It's super dark. But I found I really like writing like that, so I'm just going to go with it and see what happens.
So would you write more with Harry in? Is there a plan? Is that just going to be a standalone, or do you planning on having?
Well, originally it was a standalone, because part of it is his character. You know, he gets sort of redeemed throughout the books. He's got a lot of problems to sort of start with, and through this case, you know, he sort of redeems himself as well. So in kind of one way, his character arc is sort of finished. You know, it turned out, I suppose I shouldn't reveal too much, but you know, he doesn't die in it, and he does all right. You know, he does okay in the end. So, but then I sort of think about that, and I think I would like to write him again, because I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoy writing that time, and so I think there is definitely a possibility of doing it. You know, and I just have to find a way back into it. You know, but I think, again, watch this space. It's something I'd definitely like to do.
Someone has said on here they want more Harry.
Oh, we want more Harry. Okay, I'm sure I could do that. It seems good. I think I really do like his character. So yeah, let's do that.
Good. Would you ever come up to the present day, do you think, or is that not of any interest to you? Like,
No, it is. I've written another one which hasn't. It's sitting on my piano. I haven't done anything with it yet, which is set. I kind of like things. For some reason, I seem to end up writing things that are like things in the past, sort of informing the present, and I like that little thing of something happened here, and you know, has this impact years later. You know, I kind of like that. So this one is set in the present, but it also goes back to 1950s Cuba and all sorts of other bits, and I really enjoyed setting the stuff in the present. So. It's certainly not something I'm averse to. I kind of just take what, you know, how I sort of feel about the characters and the story, and I just go with that. And sometimes it seems more fitting at a certain time period, and I just go with how it sort of feels to me. You know, I don't. I'm a terrible pantster. I don't think, right, I'm going to set this in such and such. I just sort of I kind of see. Oh yeah, it's going to be in this time, you know, and I kind of go from there. Having said that, there's times I worked out the other day that I've got a window I'm comfortable writing in, and that's anything up to this, you know, up to the present, and back to about 1850, something like that. Anything prior to that, I feel really out of my depth. I sort of don't, you know, it just seems that sort of period, the sort of Victorian period on, I kind of really sort of I really like it, you know, and anything before that, I think I just don't know where to start, you know. But that's where I am at the moment. You know, that could change, I guess. But
it must be difficult pantsing it though, because I feel like historical books take more effort to get the details
Yeah,
right, if you know what I mean, because you've got to
yeah,
get. I know there's not the technology and there's that ease and kind of sort of doing crime and stuff in a way because there's not the same technology, but you've got to. People will know if you make an error with the historical stuff.
yeah, yeah. You've got to. So I did a lot of reading. Certain things I knew, and I knew about the war, but and again, it's like when you're dealing with something like the war, you don't really want to get it wrong. It's pretty sort of embarrassing and not good for anyone. Um, yeah, you got to get those little facts right, and people will. I saved myself. I was writing something the other day. Oh no, I know what it was. Um, One of my characters was reading Arabian Nights. So when I was writing, I write, um, and this is another one This is set in 1890. Arabian Nights. Yeah, I know that was written a long time ago. And something pinged. I was reading back through the bit I'd written. I thought that's not right. And no, it was written in like 1920. So how bad would that have been? So, um, but because of the way I kind of write, I sort of almost have to do stuff like that. And then once I've done the whole story, I then go back and sort of see what I really need to look at and get right because I just don't know when I'm writing it. I don't know what might happen. So I kind of do the whole thing, bloopers and all, and then go back and sort of fix it. It's a bit of a long process, but
Yeah. Sam has said you seem fairly open to going with the flow. Is anything off limits for you as a writer?
um, yeah, I am. I think I only. I don't think I'd be good. Although I love, as a kid, I loved like fantasy and sword and sorcery. One of my favourite books was that Raymond Feist book, Magician. I love that. Read it over and over and over. Literally, like I would finish reading it and start reading it again, the same sort of session. And I always thought, oh, if I ever write, I'm going to write stuff like that. But it never sort of gelled when I tried to write it. So I kind of I don't know if I'd say it was off limits, but I'd have to find a way of doing it that maybe fitted with how I think. I don't know. Um, so I think probably sword and sorcery not, and maybe sci-fi not, because I just don't have a natural feel for it. I don't know where I'd sort of start. But anything else, no. Sort of. Yeah, I'm pretty open apart from that.
Fair enough. I think there's a lot of like scope in fantasy kind of novels now. There's a lot more that are not just, you know, the standard kind of fantasy trope.
I like. Now I'm not going to remember what it's called. You might know it. There was a book. The premise of it I thought was brilliant. It was about people that if you have a thought or an experience that was terrible, you can go to someone and they will put it in a book, and they make this book. I think it's called something bookbinder maybe, and they bind it into a book that they hand make, and then that thought you don't sort of have it anymore. Um, and I sort of like things like that. I thought that I think it might be called either the binding or the bookbinder. Um, Really good. It's set in a sort of like alternative, so it's sort of like alternative, say 18th century, you know, and things like that. I think yeah, something like that I really love. I could, that's the thing I could sort of have a go at, But if you don't know, I think it's called The Binding. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's a really good book. Quite creepy, but it's really good.
Leslie said hello, and I think this might be Donna who said, would you like to write a kids' book with your boys?
Would I like to what? Sorry.
Would you like to write a kids' book with your boys?
Oh yeah, that would be cool. My oldest does write actually. He's been making up a story today, so he's quite into it, and so I would like to do that. That's a really good point actually. Yeah, definitely. It would be a really lovely thing to do, and they have loads of ideas, so I'll crib their ideas and pass them off as my own. I think.
There's a lot of sort of things that you can do at schools now where you can get stories published in anthologies and
Yeah,
things. I
it's
think.
yeah. And that's awesome. Because it is. I mean, I think it's fair to say, writing, whether you get published or not, it's a brilliant thing to do, and it's not even about being published, is it? It's just a great thing to be able to make things up. I said a while ago, another interview. It's like when we're kids, we play, and I think writing's like that. It's like being a kid again. You can make up these worlds, and why wouldn't you?
Someone said it's called Binding. The book you're talking about.
Yeah. 4.5 stars. Yeah, there were some funny bits in it. There were some funny bits, but it's really good. I just thought the premise of it was so. Sometimes you get a story and you think, I really wish I'd had that premise. It's so cool. It's like the Carlos Ruiz Zafón books. The Cemetery of Forgotten Books. What an amazing thing! And so I really wish I'd had that idea.
Would you be tempted to play with the format of your books? So would you write? Obviously, you've written them as novels, but would you write like graphic novels? Would you sort of have mixed media, maybe, or something like that?
I don't know. I never thought of that. I never thought of it. I mean, I think if again, I'm pretty open to collaborating, and I've done it all my life with music. So I'm kind of like Samantha said, I'm kind of open to all that sort of stuff. It's not something I would, if I were on my own, I wouldn't know where to start. But if like someone said, well, look, I'm an illustrator, I can really do this. Bring it on. That'd be great.
Laura said hello.
Hi.
Someone mentioned India further up. Is that another one?
Right.
Being historical.
Yep. So that's the one that's sort of in the pipeline now, which I've sort of finished and is being edited and read, and that is a proper sort of historical one. That's all set in the 1890s, so more research for that, going further back. Again, I love writing that. That was a different one because it was all from the point of view of this young lad. He's about 13 when we see him first. He starts off on the barges in Norfolk. He's sort of quite happy there, but this sort of event happens, and he and his mother end up going to London, and they sort of get dragged into the criminal underworld. They go to a poorhouse, and it's absolutely horrendous. And their only way out, really, this person offers them a way out, but it's into a sort of world of crime. And this lad becomes very good at it. He becomes a very accomplished thief. And he almost thinks, well, I could sort of live this life, but then, his mother disappears. So in a way, this is sort of like a bit of a sort of quest fantasy book, because then the book is about him trying to find her. And he's half Indian, half British. She's British. She's Indian. And he goes on this sort of quest across Europe, ultimately to India, to find out what happened to her. And during this sort of course, he turns from a boy to a man. And it's, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed writing this one, actually. It was a lot of fun.
That sounds quite interesting. Have you ever travelled to places like India? Is that somewhere you'd like to go? Or?
No, not really. No, I've been sort of around Europe, mostly playing, but I haven't travelled. No, I don't know if that helps or not. It's because some people. There was a writer. I'm terrible. I sort of forget these names when I really need them. But he wrote a book called Spangle about this travelling circus. I don't know if anyone knows it. I think it's Gary somebody. A book called Spangle. It's like this epic of this circus based in America after the Civil War. And it starts off as what they used to call a mud show. And it gradually builds into this huge circus, and they sort of travel around. It's a brilliant book. But his thing was, whenever he did a book like that, he went and researched it for years. So this guy went and joined a circus. And later he wrote one called Aztec, and he went and he lived like South America, and he was sort of known for doing that. And I think, I'd love to do that. That'd be awesome. But it's a bit impractical.
Yeah, I like this kind of method writing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Reading the thing. Hopefully, we don't have any method authors in the crime group.
no,
We don't want to encourage that as
no.
a thing, do we?
Keep it on the page.
Yeah, when we have people writing books about murder, we definitely don't want to
No.
encourage them to go and live in that world. Sam has said I did a great interview with Susan Willis. Very kind of you, Sam. She stayed in places for a week while she researched the area further. Would you like to do that? She was saying
Yeah,
she set up something like she'd gone on a tour, seen a place to set a body, and then literally gone back and booked into this caravan park that looked where she wanted to leave the body and stayed there for a week and just researched the area
yeah.
and took
Wow.
loads of photos to help her with the book. Is that
Yeah.
something you'd want to do, or?
It sounds pretty awesome. I mean, I think it's all about. I mean, I suppose our job is getting the reader there through words, isn't it? So the more we can experience things like that, the more we can put into it. So yeah, for sure. Obviously, 1890 is a bit hard to get to, but I think the idea of sort of going somewhere where you're going to write, I think is sort of very appealing. But then some people seem to do it. I mean, some people write books that are set in New York. They've never been to New York. I think there's sort of maybe the advantage with that maybe is that you're completely free to make up that world on paper, because you don't know what it's like. Well, how that translates across, I don't know. But I suppose once you've been there, you really do know the sights and smells. You're less free to make them up. I like making it up, I make up as much as possible. But
I really like the books that Liz Mystery writes. And she always does a thing when she's bringing out, or she used to do a thing when she got out new books in her Gus series, where she just posted pictures of Bradford because all of the
right,
books were set there and just showed you where something was found or where the police station was or
yeah,
where the thing. And I think it gives you a good kind of sense of place when you're reading something, especially if you don't know it, if you'd never
yeah,
been there. That would be a really lovely thing if you're going to then pick up the book because you could imagine these places.
yeah, yeah. I think it's great. I really like that idea, actually. Yeah. One thing I did do for India, and I did it with the mirror game as well, is that I looked at a lot of images and sort of art from that time and about that time. And I found that helped sort of get me into it. Although I never sort of specifically referenced them, I found it really handy to get it up really big on the computer screen and just really look at it and try and sort of imagine what that would have been like to sort of be there at the time. And that definitely helped me, with the sort of scenes, trying to describe what's happening. And so that was good. But second to actually going there.
Laura's asking. Oh no, Laura's not asking, but she's saying being a crime writer would be a good cover for a serial killer. Innocent
Yeah.
explanation for those internet searches. I'm beginning to worry about the members of our group because someone else has said they'd be happy to volunteer to be the first to try it.
Yeah, I feel like I've opened the sort of floodgate of method crime writing now.
Yeah, I don't think we need method crime. Although there is, we do often ask authors if they've acted out a scene as they've written a book.
Yeah.
A thing you've done, or
have I done that? No, actually, no. I know Stephen King has. Yeah, he's sort of done it. He's sort of mentioned that before, but no, I haven't. I just don't even know how I would begin, how I would even broach the subject, to be honest. But yeah, the internet searches is a good one. Yeah, how do you poison someone? How long does it take a body to decompose? Yeah, it's bad stuff, really.
because thinking about the method ones, we did have an author who, when we asked that question, told us about burying a shoulder.
Right.
They'd buried I think it's a pig shoulder or something, because they've heard that if you put something in concrete, it doesn't decompose.
Ah.
So they increase soldering concrete, buried it in their garden for a year,
Yeah.
put it back up, and then opened out the concrete to sort of see what had happened. But then the minute it like contacts air, it does begin
Right.
the process, and it was like the middle of summer where people had barbecues and stuff that they did it.
Oh,
I feel like that's the beginning of a method crime writer.
yeah. It starts there, doesn't it? That's where it starts. And
Then we don't want to know where it ends.
yeah.
So what have you read this year that you've enjoyed?
I'm reading All the Light We Cannot See, which is brilliant. What else have I read? The Essex Serpent. I love that. I haven't read as many books this year as I'd like to, actually. Just one thing and another. It's been a bit crazy. What else did I read? Stephen King's Fairy Tale. That seems to not everyone sort of likes that Stephen King fans, but yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I like all his writing, and that might have been it. I've been really bad on the reading. I'm just trying to think if I read anything else. It feels like I must have read something. Maybe The Institute, another Stephen King one. I enjoyed that as well. Quite a Stephen King fan, actually, as most people are.
I find Stephen King like a kind of Marmite author. I either read
Yeah,
his books, get to the end and enjoy them, or I don't finish because I really don't like them. If you know what I mean, they're one or the other for me.
Have you tried Fairy Tale?
I did read Fairy Tale and I did get to the end.
Yeah.
It's not my favourite one of his, but there's quite a few where I just give up like halfway or just they don't work for me. So whereas like I'm an absolute massive fan of Joe Hill.
Yeah.
Fun. Like I can't anything Joe Hill puts out is a massive hit.
Yeah.
I'd buy anything that had his name on it. He's one of my shut up my money authors.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't read any of his stuff actually. I will do though.
Oh, my favourite one is the short story collection called 20th Century Ghosts.
Okay.
It's got the story in that the Black Phone horror movie is based on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, I'll make a note of that. I will make a note of that, and I'll get that. Thank you.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I quite like horror. Is horror a thing you enjoy, or would you ever to venture into writing that?
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things I don't know where I'd start. I do like it. I started reading Clive Barker's Books of Blood, the first ones that he kind of came to fame with. Gosh, some of the stories are horrendous. They're just so, some are they're too much. I find that some of his stuff is like that is a bit strong, but amazing writing. But again, it's not something I've ever. I quite sort of, I kind of see like a sort of scene in the time. It's never sort of something that I've been drawn to, although I enjoy reading it.
I enjoy reading it, but I can't watch a horror film.
No, I'm the same. I don't like them. It's especially now because the effects are sort of so good. It was like we watched a horror film in the 90s. It's like, okay, it's a bit different, but now there's such creepy stuff, and I definitely can't. No, I can't do that. I'm a worst.
I am a massive one, and I have a friend makes one of my best friends makes horror props. And he's a teacher mostly, but he makes horror props on the side as like a business.
Right.
And his idea of like being friends with you is you get a horror movie as a gift.
Oh.
So like all sorts. Well, he's got better actually. I got gin last time he gave me a gift.
Yeah.
He used to give me horror movies. I was like, I really like horror movies.
No, I don't like it. Too violent. Although I write violent, I've written violent scenes, but yeah, but I can't watch it. No.
No, he makes all his props are amazing, but you
right
in his house. because he makes like zombies and like all sorts of things. They're like
Wow.
crazy good, like Chucky dolls that look really believable.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think if you like will live in his house and they were all like around you looking at you, you'd be a bit
No, it's too much.
you'd be a bit freaked out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, like that. They've redone it, haven't they? They made a new film of it, and I've seen a few clips of that, and it's like, man, I just can't watch it. It's worse when you have kids as well. But even without that, it's too. Oh, it's great, but it's no, I can't do it. And Pet Cemetery they've done as well. It's like, no.
I've seen the first half of it, but not the second.
Yeah.
New one. Sam's her daughter and her friends think Scream is hilarious, but that was a big thing when it was released.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
I think it's interesting. It's another thing going back to like the historical books, isn't it? Because our sense of things that are outrageous or scary or challenging are so different depending on the time that we are in,
Yeah.
and how we respond to things. And that must be quite hard when you're like writing a book that's in like the 1890s or just after the war, because your view of things would be very different because of that
Yeah.
time era that you were in.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah, and people would have had all sorts of different reactions to things at the time. They had unreasonable beliefs. I mean, like they thought at the end of the First World War that people would come back. Men would come back from the trenches and behave barbarically because they'd been exposed to all this violence, and they thought they wouldn't fit in with society. And this is sort of it was a held belief. What we're going to do if these soldiers come back and they can't fit in and they're violent, and of course they came back and most of them were broken, and it's incredibly sort of sad. So yeah, we have these almost like a mass, like sort of mass delusion, I suppose. Yeah, it's interesting, but the most of them just came back with horrendous sort of trauma, and then wanted to forget it.
And I think what you were saying earlier about that, you're sort of setting it in the 20s because of it being that time of change. It would be interesting to see what people are going to write kind of now post the pandemic, because we've been
Yeah,
through again like another really huge period of change, and I think there's going to be some really interesting
yeah,
stories that come out of that when people
yeah,
are ready to write them.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, and maybe it'll take a while before people can sort of really do that, because there's things that are written obviously sort of featuring it a little bit, but I suppose you have to look back to have a sort of perspective. But it changed, and it's like you can't write a story now without it being in it, because it would be like a sort of fantasy, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be. It's happened, and we've all sort of been through it, and we've all changed. We've all got slightly different. Like I've got this cough, and it's apparently it's a thing like everyone's immune system's changed. So, yeah, it's a different world. It's a different world from what it was before that. It's completely changed.
Yeah, well, I guess we sort of had a couple of years, didn't we, of not going out and being exposed to any germs.
Yeah,
So like now we're all catching all the ones that we didn't get
yeah,
for a couple of years.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's funny though how it was. I mean, I didn't mind the lockdown. I was quite happy. I taught online, taught piano online, and wrote and hung out with the family. It was pretty cool actually. But I don't know if we could go back to it now. It seems like we've done it, and to go back to it again, it would be. I don't know. I think it'd be very different.
Potentially. I liked some bits of lockdown, and I did still manage to go to work for part of it,
Right. Yeah.
which was good because I'm not good at working from home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And teaching science online is really hard to do.
yeah. I can imagine. Yeah.
Not a subject that lends itself well to, you know, not being practical.
No, no, no. What's your sort of favourite thing to show the kids? What really gets a wow?
I don't know. We do loads of stuff with our kids, which are like super hands on. So, like, our kids are really good at things like robotics.
Yeah.
We've got some like Lego spike robots that we program and do competitions with, and they're like
Right.
really good at stuff like that. That tends to take their imagination
Yeah.
pretty much. And we do. You don't know because the things you think are really cool and impressive, sometimes you'll show them and they'll be like, oh, and then the things you think are really boring and whatever will be the things that they'll be like, oh, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. It's the same with teaching music. I don't sort of play that much when I'm teaching. Obviously, it's not really about me, but occasionally I thought I'll sort of play something. Um, and yeah, generally people aren't that impressed. But if you play like 5 notes really fast, they're like, "Wow, that's incredible," because it's something that they've tried to do. So yeah, it's sort of things I think will really impress them. It just leaves them cold.
Yeah, and then something else. We did genetic crosses the other day and made babies from the worked out what the baby features would be in real babies, and that was the
Oh
thing that
wow,
they was like the most cool thing. And it's just like, I don't know why you think this is really cool. If it works for you, let's go with it.
yeah, 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 yeah. I just think Kaz and kids are award winners. Awesome.
We are, but we tried to keep it secret.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Sam's like flag. Yeah, no, the kid's great. They've won. We won our Yorkshire region for robotics 3 times in a row.
Oh wow.
So yeah, pretty cool. Um. Oh, Trevor Belshaw said if you could choose only one, would you be author or musician?
Oh, I hate questions like this. There's always someone that has to ask one, isn't there?
There is,
Um,
and it's Trevor, so you know
it's
who to go after. Yeah.
Yeah, it's typical. Yeah, it's really hard because I don't know. I can't really answer it. It's the two things are so intertwined for me that if I stopped like playing music, I think my writing would suffer, and vice versa. So I'm sort of stuck as this weird music writing cyborg. Trevor, that's the answer. I just do both because it really helps. Music helps the writing, vice versa. So I don't do that many gigs anymore, to be fair. But I always play music. It's sort of part of who I am. And now with writing, I mean, I didn't start writing early. Some people start when they're kids, don't they? But I didn't start. I don't know till I was in my early 30s maybe. And then I didn't do it for a long time. I had a really sort of bad experience. I got sort of ripped off with a really dodgy sort of agent, and it put me off the whole thing for years. So writing is newer, but it's really affected me. I can't sort of not do it. I love it. It's a really roundabout answer. Sorry about that, but that's the best one I've got.
I'm intrigued because you are so musical. Do you have like a soundtrack for your books?
What, in my head or when
Yeah,
I'm
in
writing?
your head as you're writing, but also that would go with them. It's like the
Yeah,
perfect musical accompaniment to the reading.
yeah. I actually, when I write, I listen to a lot of film music, and it's got to the point now with certain scenes. Um, when I was rewriting them and working on them, I listened to certain bits of music, so it did become like a film. Actually, yeah. Um, the book I wrote that was set partly in Cuba in the 50s. I've got a great album called Nocturnes, featuring all Cuban musicians, all sort of slow ballads, really beautiful. And I listened to that the whole time when I was writing it, and it really it sort of really it just sort of makes you, it draws you into the world, I suppose. You sort of forget that you're sitting in front of a computer and get really sort of sucked in. So yeah, so I do have that, definitely, but very sort of strongly, and almost I choose music now, for what I'm sort of writing, you know.
Would you share those like playlists or songs or things that you've
Um,
been listening to?
Now you're going to ask me complicated questions about playlists that I don't understand. I can give you a list of composers I listen to. I listen to a lot of Hans Zimmer. The one he did, particularly that one for the David Attenborough. Um, they did that sort of series, and he wrote the music for it. I listened to that a lot. I listened to the Nocturnes album, which is by Charlie Hayden. I don't do playlists, so I was sort of really behind the technology. Um, what else do I listen to? Classical music, Vaughan Williams, Lark Ascending. I listened to that. So the character was called Harry Lark, in the Mirror game, and there's this beautiful piece called The Lark Ascending. So I sort of used that. I listened to that quite a lot. I just found it inspiring. So yeah. Sorry, I haven't got any playlists to share. I can't put it up. I just have to tell you what music is.
Donna has said, well, Donna's been very nice about me, like further up the stream, which is lovely, and she's also said she'll show you how to do a playlist.
Thank you. Yeah, because I don't have a clue.
I always think it's really, sometimes you do get like sort of really strong musical things in books, and I think it's really nice for the author, like, this is what I was listening to when I was writing, because I think it gives you a sense of like theme for the book, doesn't it, as well? Like if you can go away and like listen to that, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, some people do it the other way around. Some people listen to music as a way of blocking out, the world. So I mean, I think Stephen King says he listens to heavy metal when he writes. But I don't do it like that. I use it as a way of getting into it, actually, but because of the fact I listen to music all my life and I'm a musician. So I sort of listen to it to sort of help go down that sort of rabbit hole out of reality, and into the reality of the book.
I use music to like change my mood or get out of a mood.
Yeah.
Quite often.
Yeah.
You've been asked how you keep track of your characters, plots, and locations.
How do I keep track of them? Again, the way I sort of do it, I'd make the odd note. I do make notes. Most of the time, the more notes I have, the worse the story seems to get. The more it trips over itself. So I get away with the minimal amount of note writing I can, and I just try and write the thing, start to finish. And then I kind of go back. I almost use like the first draft as a plan, and then I go, right, no, now I see what happens there, and then I sort of build it sort of from there. I've never been able to plan in advance. I sort of I lose the momentum of the story. If I know what's going to happen, it's like, well, I don't need to write it now. I know I've got a bit of paper that says. So to keep it sort of interesting for me and to have fun, I have to just kind of write. I mean, I know, obviously I know a bit what's going to happen. It's not like a total shot in the dark, but I always sort of think, it's basically the character has something at the beginning. My view of the world is this, and in some way, it's not right, and that challenge becomes so all-encompassing that they have to do something about it. And I think if you have that big sort of question at the beginning, you can write it. You don't need to do lots of notes, but I do the odd one. I don't totally wing it.
You just mostly wing it.
Mostly, yeah. I do. I mean, and I find things happen again. I wrote, I don't know, maybe 60 odd pages of the Mirror game, and then I got a bit stuck. I thought I can't see what sort of happens now. And sometimes I do see characters, and I won't spoil it, but I just saw one of the characters as I was sitting at the traffic lights. I remember it really clearly. Um, I saw one of the characters. I saw exactly what he was doing, and I thought, it's you. You know, you were behind the whole thing. And then the rest of the book, like sort of fell into place, and I got it down. You know.
Donna asks, what comes first, character setting or the what if moment?
I think character, because I think that's who we all relate. We're all humans, aren't we? So I think you relate to a character, and then through that, everything else.
Yeah, I think character led stuff is like sort of the kind of fiction I really enjoy.
Yeah,
Those where the characters are really strong.
I'm a big fan of. I'm probably going to say his name wrong. Katsuo Ishiguro. Um, and his books are incredibly sad. You know, they never have sort of happy kind of endings. But I love this idea that every character they're always the same. They're mostly written from the perspective of the character, and this character has a massive flaw in the way they see the world, and it drives the whole thing. You know, and you just end up being fascinated, but reading this character, what's going to sort of happen. And I think if you have that, and you have that strong character first, and then what's befallen that character to make them see the world the way they do. What's their sort of big question they need to answer, and then I think everything else after that.
Someone
But
else,
he's great at that.
yeah, his books are great.
Yeah,
Someone said that's interesting. Having read a couple of your books, as the setting is so vivid, almost a character in itself.
yeah. I do see the setting as really important. Um, so I see character in them very quickly. Well, no, I'd say actually almost at the same time, setting as well. Um, because it seems to really inform it, and I don't know if that's the same for everyone. But I did actually read an interview with Katsuo Ishiguro, and he says the same thing, that he said if I don't get the setting right, and he'll spend years thinking about setting, or he calls it location scouting, and he said if he doesn't get the setting right, so he can't do anything with it, and if you think about all his books, like say Never Let I don't if you've read Never Let Me Go, set in a slight alternate future. So sad. It's like the saddest book I've ever read. And it's like, it could never work in any other setting, but that I can't see how it would, I sort of feel it's really important, and also because you're there, you want to give the reader, you're taking them on a journey, aren't you? So it's important that they sort of see 1890s India or London or wherever it is, because that's part of it. That's part of why we read. To be sort of taken to another world.
I have read Never Let Me Go. I love it.
Yeah,
As Sam says, I love depressing books. It's
it is the most.
all of my favorite books are like super depressing. Like
Yeah,
Wuthering Heights is my favorite read of all time.
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will do with Wuthering Heights what you said you did for The Magician. I will literally
Yeah.
get to the end and start reading it again.
Yeah.
I've read it I've broken a copy because I read it so many times.
Yeah. Yeah, you do, don't you? You get and you just fall in love with these characters, and even with Magician now, I could happily go and read it this instant. The characters are like old friends, and I sort of weirdly, I see when I read it when I was 12 or whatever age I was, I see exactly the same setting when I read it again. It hasn't changed, so it's like my brain built that, and it's still there. As soon as I open the book, I see exactly the same, down to the detail. It's funny.
But I think you go back and see different details if you read books over different ages. So some of my favourite books I've read from when I was young, like now I go back and see them in a slightly different way, but I still love them.
Yeah.
This could be Donna, who said, "Do you enjoy killing characters off that readers like?"
Yeah, sounds about right.
Do we think that's Donna?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I do. I tried to kill a character off in my book. Luckily, my wife stopped that. She read through the mirror game and edited my sort of first editor, and she said you can't do that. I was like, okay, fine. It's sort of better to sort of, and she was absolutely right actually. So it was good. Yeah, I do. Sorry, yes, yes, I do. I know there's another one where I have as well. I just realised. I don't do it deliberately. It's just what happens. I don't have a lot of say. I do feel like that. I don't plan. It's, if their time's up.
It was Trevor apparently. So that was me giving Donna the blame, and it wasn't Donna. Sorry, Donna.
Well, yeah. It seems like the sort of thing she might say.
It did feel like the kind of question Donna would ask, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, she's asked some great questions recently. She asked one when I was interviewing Susan Willis about what's your do you have a treasured signed book?
Right.
And I think that was a really lovely question. Do you have a treasured signed book?
A what? A treasures?
A treasured, like, signed copy of a book. Do you have one that you really?
Ah, right. No, I don't actually. I've got signed CDs, but no signed books. No, I haven't, which is really bad. I feel like I should have.
I thought that was a great question that she asked. It was a really good one. You've got 3 minutes left, so remind people about what kind of books they're going to go away to buy after listening to this chat.
Okay, cool. Well, I'd very much like you to buy the Mirror Game. I don't know, is it coming out in reverse? It probably is.
It's all right.
But, there we go. That's my plug. That's available. I mean, it's Amazon. It's going to be available from the 10th. It's all going to be out there on Kindle and however you want to buy it. Maybe Audible coming soon. Hopefully, will be great. The next one, India, the 1890s one, is going to be out September, and that will also be Amazon and available in all good bookshops. All the rest of it, and I've got other things coming up, but those are the two, that I want to plug, that I want you to buy.
Trevor says he's been spending too much time around Donna. Donna feels attacked, but Sam has also said Donna will be able to sign her for you soon.
Donna will be able to what?
Sign her book for you soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yes, I see. Yeah, she's mentioned one of the characters I killed. Yeah, it's the way it goes. Say when their time's up. That's it.
It's a hard thing killing off a character that people really love, though.
Yeah. It is. I felt sad.
Like George R.R. Martin got warned by his wife that he could never kill off Arya in the books because she was his wife's favorite.
Yeah.
They literally threatened him. She was like, you cannot kill this character.
But almost everybody dies, don't they? At some point in those books, they all get it, don't they?
They do. And Donna said she'll see you on Saturday at Birmingham.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah. We'll see you Saturday. Yeah, Donna and Trevor. I don't know who else. It'd be great to sort of see you all face to face. It'd be brilliant.
And then thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. It's been really nice to chat books and music, and thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome.
Cool.